So we have the minutes, and we have some tax roll corrections. And Jolene, is she ready?
I'm ready.
I'll make the minutes for December. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 4th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes from last meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, I have the renewal figures. I have a couple of trees here. So I have the renewal proposal like we did last year, but then I also did kind of a cheat sheet with the changes that we've made in the last year. So So still the top copy there. Okay, so the changes that have been made throughout the year. Employers Mutual has increased the deductible on the property, the buildings and the contents from $500 to $1,000, which actually overall that's pretty small. I've got some companies that are making property deductibles for $10,000 with the 1% hail and wind minimum. So the MC's pretty much held the line on that, so that is a change there. The inland marine schedule that you'll find there, those have all been looked at by the departments and been updated. And the guys, or the departments did, a lot of them, look at the values. You know, the schedule is based on an actual cash value, so we really don't want to insure them for what you paid for them 5 years ago if you put the hours on them. So there were some changes there. The general liability expenditure based on last year's audit was increased a little bit. We made some changes on some trucks, and then your work comp experience mod went from 1.07 to 1.08. And when I looked at all of the figures, when you go back to the back sheet, pretty much everything held the line, and you actually would have had a decrease except for your work comp. Your work comp rates have gone up. But I also brought over some sheets that kind of went over the losses that you had on the work comp and what makes up that factor. So on the copy, this is an experience modification worksheet, excuse me. And when you look at that, I know it's going to be Greek initially, but they take 3 years and calculate out what your payrolls have been versus what your losses have been, and either give you a credit or a surcharge. And the county, through all the years, kind of fluctuates. Unfortunately, now there's a surcharge. So on page 2, that first column there for 2010-2011 has 2 losses there. And I actually, on your copies, I put down to the right the name of who those individual claims were on. Now, the nice thing is that next year that's going to roll off, okay? That will be off the system. So one thing to keep in mind also is when they do the calculations on this, if it's medical only, rather than using the full amount that was paid to do the calculation, they just use 30% of the figure. So that's a good thing. So when you go down to the section below that for the 2011-2012, we've had 3 claims in that period. And there really, when I look at to see if there's any kind of a pattern for the claims, there really doesn't seem to be. It's kind of different departments and things. So this one will stay on, and then on the next page, we have one that's going to, that's pretty big there. And let's see what I wrote on the one that has the larger, the second one, it looks like he was stepping off the machine and twisted his knee. And so he must have had to have surgery. So that was in the 2012-2013 year. So the good news is this first one's going to roll off, but then I looked at the losses that we've had so far this year. And unfortunately, that's not going to help you because they're going to roll on. Now, the one with the hernia was medical only, so they'll only use 30% of that, so that will be good. So they'll only plug in 4,000 instead of 12,000, which is good. There was a small one that was medical only, but you did have one where one of the employees was taking some snow off of his vehicle and had some damage. So anyway, that all goes into that. And when I look at those, I don't really know what you can do differently, about that. Again, I think we talked last year about your employee population is getting older, and with that, things occur. We do have a loss control department. We can provide any kind of training that you want. If any of the departments, would like that, any kind of equipment training, any kind of, yeah, I know.
Philip doesn't he?
Philip does sometimes, and sometimes he gets videos and that kind of thing, but I'm guilty of that myself, kicking the snow off the... Hadn't really thought too much about that till I saw this one, so... yeah, I'm like,
I
whoa.
wasn't going to say it.
No training is going to help.
It's like that big chunk is just sitting there waiting for me,
Yeah.
Some things you can't fix.
Now, the other thing is that hopefully Nita shared with you that the company did in August issue a check for a dividend back of almost $16,000 to the county for a dividend for if you're in a safety group and if the group overall does pretty good, then they declare a dividend, and then that's based on the individual counties. And so your county actually had a return of almost $16,000. So with that being said, our premiums overall are up just a little over 5%. And honestly, it's all in the work comp. When I look at and go down through the categories, your property rates are down. Your inland marine, which is your contractors' equipment and all that, is up a little bit, but that's, with the value changes. The crime coverage stayed the same. The general liability did go up a little bit, but we increased the expenditures based on the audit from last year. Your auto premium actually went down. Your work comp went up $7,855, and that's really where it all is. And then the umbrella premium is down. The linebacker, which is the director's and officer liability, was up $35, and the law enforcement liability stayed the same. So, if we didn't have that work comp situation in there, we'd have been pretty flat with the premiums. So the mod did go up just a percentage, and then with the rate reevaluation. And those rates, those actuarials figure each class code and put all the data in, and then, each year the state changes those rates January 1 based on what those actuarials come up with. And in this case, the new rates have been applied. So sometimes they're a little slow getting them applied, but they are.
Our police dog died.
The police dog died? Are you going to replace the police dog? No? Okay. So we can make that adjustment. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Huh?
We have the dog insured.
No. You have
It's on
liability for the dog.
Yeah.
The dog is not
that.
insured, but
Police
the
dog.
liability for the
I don't
dog.
have a new one.
And they're not, you get another one?
I
You
don't
sure?
think so. I think they were going to borrow or rent or share.
Okay, now wait a minute.
Dog.
If they rent or share,
I don't know. That would
probably
be a
need to
question
know.
for Jeff. You should ask Jeff that question.
Let me ask you
Okay,
before you.
okay. Because if the county utilizes the dog, whether it's rented or borrowed or whatever, the
And
county
they will
would still
still
have,
use one, I'm
yes, you
sure.
would still have a liability exposure for that, even though those dogs are amazingly trained.
Okay,
That's
Just in
common.
I
case.
will find out.
That's probably why our work comp went up too. Because there was surgery involved, and that was medical.
Work comp on the dog.
I did not see a work comp claim come through on the dog. Poor thing.
What was our premium last year?
Your premium last year was, it was $137,894. So it's just a little over, it's like 5.15% approximately, I think it has come out. And again, it's all in that work comp. You know, that hadn't been the situation. And I, actually, let me look here. The rate for cleaning the building went up. I was looking down through the rates. The rate for the building, for the person cleaning the building. Yeah. And so there must be some, well, which.
That makes sense. Never mind.
Okay. So I was just looking at the rate differentials here to see, you know, all of them just kind of snuck up a little bit. So there isn't really anything that jumps out that we have a lot of payroll with. So the ambulance service went from a $4.20 rate to a $5.07 rate. So, which I suppose the exposure there overall. So, okay, so that's what I thought you might want to hear. What would you like to hear? What other questions might you have?
Is there anything we need to be doing different?
Well, you know, I mean, if there was a way, you know, I mean, if you guys would be in great shape if we didn't have the modification on the work comp. You know, if you could get that rolled over, and it does go in cycles. Unfortunately, now it's going to take a little while to get through that. But those aren't really things you can control. So there's not been, you know, there was a building loss here, which, you know, they didn't pay a lot of money out on. But overall, the rest of the losses have been excellent. But you guys always make me nervous because the weather man always talks about Stafford County.
I usually get a phone call the next day. What happened down there?
Yeah, anything going on? Everything okay? Just trying to be proactive. Don't want anything to happen, but just in case. And, you know, these are your copies, so, you know, after the fact, if there's anything, you know, Nita can, you know, get with me and we can talk about that and go over that. So I do have the fire department's renewal figures and the EMS, and I think that Misty had talked with you about possibly making a change on one of the ambulances. That 96, I'm doing that by recall, let me see. That 96 Ford ambulance, I think when she had met with you, we have liability, of course, on it and comprehensive and collision. And I think that maybe you guys had discussed with her about what the cost would be for taking off that common collision. It would save $478 a year. And I don't know what the blue book on that unit is. And is that just an extra? What is that?
It's a reserve. Yeah.
Reserve, okay. So if you
Is
didn't
that
have
unit
it.
number 3? That's unit number 3.
So with.
And it's, well, they have to use it once in a while just to get mileage on it.
Just to drive it so it keeps running?
Right.
Okay. So I guess, you know, what I would look at is what's the blue book value on it? What would you get out of it? But if it's parked most of the time, you know, and if it's a reserve and you're not at a definite loss, then, you know, it may not be worth it to carry the comprehensive.
But the only problem is they rotate, they're supposed to, you know,
Rotate
exchange
units.
it with 2, 3 with 2, and 2 with
Oh,
3,
really?
and then I don't know if one ever goes, one is here in St. John,
I see.
and it's used the most. But I think one of the things that Steve said, that, you know, the age, on the warranty, the age outdates the vehicle as opposed to the mileage.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have low mileage compared
Low
to
mileage.
normal, what?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, okay, so we have a 2002, 2005, 2010, and then we put that Ford Escape on there because EMS, it had been on fire, and apparently EMS is using it, so we just rolled it from fire to EMS. But so then there actually is a total of four ambulances then. All right, well, I'll just, I'll go ahead and tell Missy about that, and you guys can talk with her about that. If we need to make a change, you can just let you know now.
Let go of the honest, but
I would.
I'd just do right.
Okay, okay. And I need to her, I'll just tell her that I went over that with you guys, so. All right, so what else? You know, again, if you guys need some kind of loss control or if there's some kind of meetings we can do, I think we've done some of that prior, you know, we can sure do that, and there's no charge for it, so. The videos, we have all kinds of things, so. You just, if you need it, you just have to let us know, so. Maybe you have any questions? She's easy, most of the time. If I do what she wants, then I'm good.
Somebody at this table hasn't learned that yet.
Oh!
She's used to getting her way.
I know, but you know, in all honesty, it's not, usually, I don't usually disagree with what she's saying.
Oh, I
How's
do
that?
sometimes.
You know, but that's your prerogative, see?
He gets in trouble.
He does?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Just temporarily.
Yes, I know. But, you know, that way it keeps her on her toes, right?
Joint the tornado shelter at the health department.
The tornado shelter at the health
We
department.
have hidey holes now at health department and EMS.
Really?
Do they need to be?
Okay, so I
They're
probably,
in-ground.
yeah, I just probably need to have a little information for the liability. I don't think that there
Well, what
can
I
be
was thinking
damage.
about, it is for public use.
It is for public use. Okay, so tell me, when you do that, is there a county employee who has to open that and is kind of there surveying that?
Well, I mean, it's for the county employees.
It's for the county employee, so. it-
But like if there are patients in the health department, when a tornado would come, they would go down there with them.
Okay,
See what I
good,
mean?
right, so the hospital people would go down with
And in
them.
the same way with the EMS,
Right.
it's EMS personnel, but if there's someone around the area that
Mhm. Okay.
doesn't have a protected structure, then
What
obviously
does,
we can't say, no, you can't come down because you're not a county employee.
what's the capacity of those?
Four-
Yeah, yeah. You have to
14.
stand outside.
16 in ours and a cat and 2 dogs, so I don't know.
It seemed like it was 14 friendly.
Okay. Okay, so does anyone know the size of those? And are those like a metal
We did at
type
one
thing?
point,
They're
no, concrete.
Concrete.
Let me see if I have.
They're the
one.
pre-made
Okay.
concrete storm shelters. I know you've seen them probably.
Yeah,
And they're halfway in the ground.
they're only halfway in the ground.
Or three-foot, yeah, they're just a little bit of them sitting above.
Okay. And there's one at the EMS location and there's one at the health department?
Yes.
Okay. And there's electricity?
No.
No electric, no water,
No,
no,
no.
okay, no
It's a ball.
utilities. Hold it.
With a vent.
There's a vent, a whirligig vent.
Okay.
top.
Okay,
With that in the door.
all right. So anyone know this?
But it is rather steep.
It doesn't say the size. Okay, so if they're above ground, I can go measure them, you know, because I want. And how deep do you think
I have,
Are they
I thought they were,
You
No.
never look at it. Doors are behind you.
I thought they were, I bet they are. You can stand up and,
they're? So, most
Yeah.
people, you think they're,
Oh, I bet.
at least they.
You can stand up and
You know, Kevin O'Brien, they could tell you
So
the
we
exact
call
dimensions
Kevin
of them.
O'Brien.
I'm sorry, who?
Kevin O'Brien Davis.
stay with me.
That's who it's done.
You have doors called.
Oh, it's your son-in-law? Cool.
That's great.
All right, I can do that, I'll stop over there. Okay,
They
good, that
She'll
was new
probably
information, Clayton, thank
Yeah, I bet Doris will know.
How big they are.
Yeah.
you. Okay, so we would not need, in my perception, you would not need to cover the structure, but you would need liability for that,
Right.
knowing that.
Right.
So, okay.
You might twist a knee or an ankle, come down the steps.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, people are in the panic mode, and so it could very well happen. The only difficult thing is that in a confined spot and we panic and you never know what. Yeah, but that's neither here nor there, so you just work with that, so, okay. When I was on the hospital break band and they would utilize the cafeteria down and, for that, it turned into absolute chaos. And people would be going out the back door. I mean, they actually had to do away with it because they were actually hindering them from taking care of the patients. So they actually had to, at that time, do away with it, which is really a sad deal because a lot of people didn't have anywhere to go, so.
The EMS department, there'd almost always be somebody in there from the county, but the other one might not be anything.
Right.
So do most of the public know that it's there? Is that a pretty
Oh,
well-known, probably, okay.
I don't know, it's been advertised.
Very good.
Because they used to go over to, across the street to the old hospital, which I guess they still do, but Doris felt that something close by, so it's just directly behind the health department building,
Okay, I'll go in.
in the same way the EMS.
Okay, very good, okay. I was not aware of that. so
Well,
good.
this was just done this year, so.
Okay, okay. Anything else you can think of? Okay, all right, so I'll get that worked over, and then if something else comes up, just let me know. All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. Happy holidays to you guys. It's around the corner right now. Just call me if something comes up. Okay, all right. See you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Dennis comes at 9. So the tax rolls, get that out of the way.
Sorry, I needed this one with one. Oh, okay, just like one.
So the work comp has a rolling 3 years, correct?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like there's that many that really.
No, and with the,
perspective.
Compared to other
Yeah.
counties.
and with the exception of that
Yeah, but
one,
what gets me is it's just stupid things that cause
Yeah.
Mhm.
them to have those accidents. I mean,
Yep.
Folks, Brenda's that one. And wasn't much.
I mean, not all that way, but I mean, it seems like the one should explain to us.
46.
I don't remember what that one was.
That couldn't have been much.
It wasn't.
I wouldn't even report it to that.
Well, there's some people you just automatically report because you never know where it's going. And there's a lot of them that we haven't because we just paid them out of risk management and it's worked out. But there's just a few you just don't do that.
I move we approve the tax roll corrections.
Let's do that.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, we accept the tax roll corrections, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Do you have anything?
I know there's probably something I need to go over with you guys, but I can't think of anything. Oh, Lisa Marina wanted me to mention, she's had a lot of complaints about the elevator.
The elevator.
What's wrong with it?
Well, this morning I rode it and it hesitates on second floor and it took me slowly up to third floor and they say there's nothing they can do about it.
So,
I know, and it's been kicking off.
Who put it in?
We've had to go down and reset it.
it's really, I mean,
I
the
know.
elderly people, they really,
Don't like
I know.
well, and like in the instance of my aunt one time, she didn't know where she was.
did that to
She got totally scared. She didn't know where she was, she got disoriented.
But
We've had it looked at several times and
Andrea Siefke's, her little girl was on there, and they just about were to call 911.
Oh,
And she
my.
said, I don't think my little girl
Can
will
we
ever
find
ride an
somebody to come
elevator.
check it
again."
out?
we have had them.
Yeah. So it's really is becoming an issue. I don't know what we need to look at.
So what do we do? What's
I
it?
told Mike and he's called them and they've come. Well, we think we've got it fixed this time, huh?
Maybe we call somebody else.
I haven't seen anybody else call for elevators. I have no idea.
Is that Dennis?
Yep.
I would Google it.
I'll let Mike do that.
What,
That's his department.
is that an Otis?
Excuse me?
Montgomery. What's the name, what's the brand of the elevator?
I have no idea.
Otis sounds
How would we
familiar.
find that out?
I think
It's
usually has on the
It's right on top
threshold there.
It's written on the bottom.
On top of it?
Volume of it.
Right at the threshold.
Yeah.
Well, that day I tried to use it. It took forever.
Probably because it was creeping up
Yeah.
Yeah.
with somebody in it, like it did me this morning.
Does it go all the way up to the 4th floor?
Mine, it just goes to
Don't make
third
it
with
on
me.
the
And then comes back down?
I never ride it back down, I always take the stairs. I can go downstairs, I can't go up.
Well, see, then I've had people say it takes them clear back down to the 1st floor.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it'll creep all real slow, and then go clunk,
Yeah,
and then go back to the 1st floor, and it never even brings them to the 2nd floor.
really.
Probably that guy.
And so I've had people that had to go ahead and come up the stairs.
I would call somebody.
I'll go Mike.
There's not too many guys that repair elevators in central Kansas.
Have Mike come in. Dennis, are you ready?
I'm ready. Morning, morning.
How's it going?
Good.
Elevator.
You ready to talk about insurance again? You guys are so excited about this.
Hi.
Morning.
Our favorite subject.
Like getting a tooth pulled.
Well, hopefully I'm not recording your team. Well, I talked to Nita about what you've been looking at, and she, as you know, she sent me this information that you've seen before, so I just wanted to come down today and kind of walk through it and give you my version of what the numbers represent, kind of how they shake out. So I've highlighted some things on here. I took her information, freedom claims information, just went through and yelled some stuff, so we'll just talk about it a second and let you see kind of where things are coming from. So, first off, and I want to talk about, I probably should have mentioned this the other day when I was down here in this lower left-hand corner. I want to talk about run out a second. What run out means is when you're on a partially self-funded plan like you are, when you terminate it, then there are claims that are pending or that we haven't seen yet that need to be processed. And when you change to a fully insured carrier, which technically that's what you'd be doing, you'd be going to United Healthcare as a fully insured carrier with a $5,000 deductible, and then there's some what I call a health reimbursement arrangement being made, to get the deductible back lower, so employees, because they don't want a $5,000 deductible, they want something better than that, so we make up that difference. But when you start a fully insured plan, it starts on January 1. And they only cover things that are incurred January 1 or after. So everything that's in the hopper, and we usually think there's about a month to a month and a half of claims floating around there at any one time. The guy that sees the doctor today, we may not see that claim.
It'll be about 30 minutes.
We may not see that claim until January. So at any one time, there's about roughly 30 days of claims. I went back, I didn't look back forever, but I did look at the last 3 years in January. Each one of those years, there was about $40,000 worth of claims paid. So I think I got a number on here of 50, it's a guesstimate, but I think it's safe to assume that if you went to United Healthcare and termed this plan, at the same time you're paying premiums and things to United Healthcare, you're going to also have, I'm going to guess, $50,000 of expense to run out the plan. Now, when we come in and show our renewals, we include those dollars in our renewal because we know they're going to happen. It just keeps rolling forward, But when you shut one off, and start another, you gotta pay the other one, then you gotta pay the rollover or the run on top of it. So whatever savings you might think you would have is probably gonna be diminished by $40,000, $50,000. So that's, probably should have mentioned that when I was here the last time. But the other thing on here, these numbers that I highlighted, these are maximum numbers. And so just kind of keep those numbers in your head. You'll see those that across there, 1,700 for a family, 1,737.62, the grand total of about 559. Just kind of put those in your memory bank on the flip page. This plan is substantially different than the one that we're on. I made a note up here. Basically, your plan today is a $500 deductible, 80/20, until the employees spend another $1,000, and then it's 100%. And basically, everything goes through that. Drugs are 80/20, office calls are 80/20, everything's 80/20 after the deductible. Now, drugs don't have a deductible, it's just 80/20. This plan down here, so they have a $1,500 out of pocket per single, no more than 2 per family. And if it's out of network, which means you would see some provider not in the network, your out of pocket could go to $2,500 or 2 per family. That OOP there is out of pocket. This plan is a $500 deductible, 80/20 to $2,000 out of pocket. So even in network, they've got the out of pocket goes up $1,000 for the employees. You have $2,500 out of pocket, not $1,500. There's a bunch right there in the center that says facility visits. You have a lot of co-pays, $25, specialists $50, urgent care $75, ER $250. We don't have those right now. We're just 80/20. So for example, if somebody went to the doctor and saw, say, a specialist, and it was an $80 visit, they pay, assuming the deductibles met, they would pay 20% $80, 16 bucks. It's going to be $50 here. So the co-pays are going to amount up to quite a bit of money. The drug card is $15, $40, $75, same thing. Somebody goes in and buys a $50 brand name drug. Our plan, they pay 20%, 10 bucks. This plan, they pay, the copay would be $40 or maybe even $75, so they would pay all of that. I've got it here, I'll drag it out if you want me to, but we can do plan modeling where we can put in different benefits and tell you what would have happened if we would have done this last year. And I made this note on the second yellow note from the bottom. If we had had this plan in force last year that you're looking at here, it would have either saved, well, you can look at it either way, it would have saved the county $22,083, or it would have cost the employee $22,083. So that money's got to be paid somewhere. So you either save it or they spend it. That doesn't count the drug differences. My model that I run doesn't calculate co-pays on drugs. And those co-pays would have cost people a lot more money too. So as I mentioned, they're going to be paying $15, $40, or $75, where they would have been paying 20%. So those co-pays are going to add up. So that difference would have been actually probably quite a bit more. Also, the out-of-network on this plan, potentially, if somebody's out, it could cost somebody $14,000. It's very significant. When you're out of network, if somebody was traveling or ended up somewhere, it's either going to cost the insured a lot of money, the employee, it's going to cost the county feels obligated to make that up, it's going to cost the county a lot of money. So the out-of-network claims are pretty significant. And speaking of that, as of today, as I understand it, Farmer and Jennings, which are 2 of your big providers, not in the network. Are they in the network now?
No.
Okay. Well, I was kind of surprised by that because doctors tend to be joiners, but I looked at a website and
The ones in yellow, she said, are not.
yeah.
With the United. Yeah. I just got that.
United's been a little bit. We don't use United. We could use United Healthcare. We don't use them out here much because they're a little bit thin in some places in terms of provider access. So that'll get better. That's bound to get better as time goes on. But so the point of this page is that the plans are substantially different. I would guess that if and we could model this plan if you said, well, I really like this plan. I could do this plan and it would probably save you guys $25,000, $30,000 in claims next year. But at the expense of your employees because they're going to have a substantially higher out of pocket. So there's quite a bit of difference. Next page. Top of the sheet, because I think it's important. We looked last time when I was out here, I showed you your 10-year average. We looked at your history. I went back and just averaged them, added them all up and divided it out. Counting this year, which is actually one of your higher years, Last 10 years, counting this year, your average spend has been just a little over $401,000, almost $402,000. Probably the biggest issue I have with these numbers, the way they're on here, is this top row, $46,522 per month, is that $558,000 number from the front, the number that we should remember. So what Freedom is doing is they're taking our worst case and comparing it to their best case and saying there's $130,000 of difference. So for this $130,000 of savings to be real, we have to hit our max. We have to spend $558,000, when in fact, the last 10 years we've spent $401,000 on average. And United Healthcare's, and the numbers, just to go down through them, their premium for their $5,000 deductible is $262,000. And then there's $10,000 of fees by Freedom, a projection of $141,000 in claims, that kind of that best case number. Because actually the worst case number is it's about twice that, which I would agree would never happen, but the worst case number, which is if you're going to compare worst case to worst case, then you theoretically would want their worst case against our worst case. And their worst case would be about twice that $141,000. That's kind of a, and I'm not saying I disagree with that number, but I just say it misrepresents our number. And then there's another $13,000 of fees. That $13,000 of fees is actually 10% of the $130,000 of perceived savings that they're representing, that you're going to save $130,000. Freedom charges 10% of that as a fee. At the end of the day, the fees that you would pay Freedom will be about 13,000. Well, actually, that number there, about 13,000 goes higher than what we charge you for what we do. So you would pay your cost of running the plan would go up about $13,000 from where we're at today.
So you're comparing the 428 is what the average would be on the other plan versus your average of 401.
Our average, in fact, for the last 10 years has been 401. And to get the savings that Freedom proposes, that she takes our worst case number and hangs it out there like it's reality, and then takes the best case number and says, oh looky here, it's $130,000. The reality is, now could that happen? Well, her 140 won't happen if my 58 doesn't happen. They both got to go back.
So she took the 559 and subtracted the 428 and come up with the 130.
That's right. That's where it came from.
Yeah. I can never figure out where that came from.
Yeah, it was it. She took the the premium, $262. She has $10,000 of fees. She guesstimates $141,000 of claims to get the plan back to the $500 deductible for the employees. Puts in another $13,000 of fees and totals $428. And then subtracts it from our $558 and says, I'll save you $130,000.
Yeah, I could see. I guess I couldn't come up with the 428 anywhere on that figure.
Yeah, if you add those up, yeah, that's where it comes up to. So, to me, it's not comparing apples and apples. I mean, we're quite a bit apart on that. That's not even really good apples and oranges. But the next page is to continue the theory, then, which is even almost more absurd. She takes our 558, plugs it in year one, when in fact, again, we've paid $400,000 for 10 years, and inflates it 12% a year for the next 5 years. So we not only have 558 year one, we're going to pay 625 in year two, and then 700, which is just a 12% inflation run across the board. She takes her lower number of 428, which is the one we just talked about, inflates it 12%. Well, naturally, when you get bigger numbers, as they go out, they just fan out. And so that's how you get to $826,000. You total up 5 years of 12% of inflated premiums on both sides. Calculate the differences. Oh my gosh, I'm going to save $826,000 in 5 years. It's not. It'll never happen. And the irony to the whole thing, if there's anything true about the 12% inflation, it would be that UHC could very easily go up 12% a year on their premium. That $262,000 would not be odd at all to think that hard, fully insured premium wouldn't inflate 12%. That, to me, is very believable. And that alone, then, that last note on here, if that was true in 5 years, their premium alone will be $413,000. So just the premium piece of that would be more than what you've been paying for the last 10 years, without accounting for fees and claim reimbursements because it's a $5,000 deductible.
You have a list of what the actual cost was over those 10 years. You said the average is 401.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. to
I
see
gave,
what
I
that
think,
was.
I don't know,
Did we have that?
I gave it right here. This is the, I don't know,
I'll just look at it once.
Sure. This is the, we did this, I showed this to you last last time I was here. This is 2000, put it this way. This is 2004, and this is to 2013. And we come down here, these are our costs based on, now to get these numbers, we take a static enrollment we figured you had the same enrollment every year, which would be these enrollments right here. Now, obviously, you may have had a person or two more, or a person or two less over time. So we take a static enrollment, but we plug in the hard factors, and these are the numbers we come up with. 402 actually went down, 340, 416, 441, 416, 434, and this year, which was one of your higher years, 507. You add all those numbers up and divide it by 10, and you'll get 401. And that represents, and the other part of it would be our fixed costs. Our fixed costs have been 111, and over the 10-year period, we're at 124. So we've inflated about 10% in 10 years. And that's because, one of the reasons we can do that is because we can plug and play on our stop-loss premium that covers the large claims. And you can see when Gerber, they got a little high, we went somewhere else, went to HCC, went back to QBE, and we've been with them for 4 years. So when we go out to the market to shop your stop-loss, which covers the large claims, we throw everything out on the table and we let carriers compete for it. And that's why we can keep premium costs. When you stick with one carrier, most carriers tend to be pretty good for about 2 or 3 years. And then you almost have to change because the rates go up, and then you have to back away, and you start over, and then it goes up, and you start over. And we can make that change invisible, where when you're with a fully insured carrier like Blue Cross or UHC or Preferred Health or Coventry, any of those carriers like that, you have to completely unplug the event and start over and recard it and reacquaint people. And so we're able to come into an account and stay a long time, and people, all they ever know is it's BMI. They don't know whether it's Gerber or QBE or HCC. So that's how we keep our fixed costs level over a long period of time, so you don't see 12% bumps.
The difference here is just more claims this year.
It's just more claims. Yeah, these actually represent your claims. We had, if you go back in time, we've had claims from 260, we dropped to 208, 230, 222, 301, and then 312, and they've jumped up this year. And they can just as easily drop back, just like these years when you go from 250 to 208. But you guys have really been pretty consistent. This year it's jumped up, but this year from here it went down. You were 320 and dropped 50 grand, and now it's up. And next year it could be another $220,000 claim year. But that's what makes it work so well. Is when in our world, when you have good years, they're your good years. They're not our good years. And if you ever had a really bad year, then that just means you would hit that max, which we've never even sniffed that max, which is the number that was being used to generate that $130,000 savings. So the big differences here, I think, are you would have run-out expense. So if you made a change, you're going to spend another $40,000, $50,000 getting out of this because you've got to pay claims that have been incurred, because the UHC is not going to take anything with a service date prior to January 1. So you got two things going on for a month or so. You've got substantially different plan benefits. I mean, we could save you 30 grand like that just by changing your plan to what's being proposed here. I don't know that you want to go to that kind of plan design. Those are pretty significant co-pays. You have somebody to pay $75 urgent care. Drug co-pays are pretty high. Co-pays are popular in some circles. These are kind of high for what we would normally see.
I think you mentioned one time that we could tweak the deductible just a little bit at a time.
Absolutely.
And how much would $100 or to change it from 5 to 6?
I can model that. I mean, we have a modeling program that we can stick that in. You know, you could look at the number of people that met deductible and say, well, it would cost those people $100 more. In fact,
You know, that'd be, would be too hard to figure.
no, it's not hard to figure at all. This is the one we did here, which is kind of interesting. This depends on this calculates co-pays. Didn't calculate our drug co-pays. We're not able to put that into this program. But this thing not only tells you how much money, it tells you who it would have affected. You can go down here by a person and you say, this person paid this, they would have paid that. This person, and with the claims they had last year, with this plan that's being shown here, these people, this is how the impact would have been. This person would have paid that, and then they cost them, in some cases, it's quite a bit of money. Just the way the nature of the claims, the way they hit. If somebody maxes out, and this is, of course, a combination of individuals and families. So it can be fairly significant. It gets, when it goes on. So we can tell you with our model, that's where this number came from. You would say $22,000. And then it goes on to tell you the conditions that generated that. You know, like...
You're comparing what we had last year versus what the
Yeah,
United
it'd be like-
Healthcare model was.
It'd be like replaying last year. If we could back this thing up a year and start over and put these benefits into the plan last year, this is what would have happened. Instead of paying this, it would have paid that, the model plan, and that's the change. But it'll look at things like any of them. You can pick one out there. Office visits. Not a lot of difference there. But some of those you can see and make, like this one here, prescriptions, a little bit that we had. Now this isn't completely accurate because of the co-pays, but quite a bit of money. But it shows you the types of services, and then it goes on to show you the people that would have been affected by that. But yeah, we can do that. We can do that for 100, for anything you want. But the main thing, what people try to do is, generally speaking, do things incrementally so you don't just shock people. But the idea is that people have, the more skin you have in the game, you know, the different people behave. You always spend your own money different than somebody else's. And so you want people to have maybe a little more skin in the game so they think things through, and maybe you don't run to the doctor quite as fast. And it's the old take an aspirin, wait a day, see if it works itself out. Those kind of things are what you try to drive. So when you raise your deductible, two things happen. You obviously save $100 if they go, but then you also maybe altered somebody's view of it and they didn't go. And so
500 is pretty good in this day and age.
500 is extremely low in this day and age. We just wrote a group down in Hutchinson, and they had actually had a zero deductible. And then it was 50-50 to 50-50 to 4,000, so they could have 2,000 out of pocket. So you had no deductible, then 50-50 of the next 4, and then 100%. So you could potentially, an employee could have 2,000 out of pocket. But that's kind of an old Blue Cross deal. Blue Cross had those plans a long time ago, and it's kind of a throwback to an old Blue Cross plan.
Most of the ones you see on United Healthcare have $2,000 deductibles, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I was listening to some
or 25.
Fox News, you know, on these exchanges, that the marketplace, there's a lot of those deductibles are 5,000 with
Yeah.
12,000 out of pocket. I mean, those exchange products are out of pockets and deductibles are really high. But a typical deductible today, well, in fact, you know, they were saying the average deductible, I don't know where they get these numbers at, the average deductible on the exchange is going to be $5,000, and before the exchange, the average deductible was $3,500. I don't know where to get that number. $3,500 is a pretty stiff deductible around here, but I wouldn't be surprised maybe on the East and West Coast you don't see higher deductibles, but most of the things we see around here, $1,000 is a pretty typical deductible anymore. In your co-insurance is 80-20 to 5, that's pretty typical. But your deductible, we could ratchet that thing up $100, $150, or $250, you know, some number that seemed reasonable, but
And the contract on this is January 1st.
it's a January 1. All we gotta do is just say the word, and we're good to go. And I think there was talk about maybe dropping a plan.
That, yeah. We're just gonna go
Which-
with the
which-
one deductible.
Yeah, we just, we got 2 plans here. I think one
We
was
used to
nobody.
have 2 plans,
Oh,
300, 600, and 500,000. Nobody has 300, 600, so
There's nobody in it, so we just get it off the shelf and just have the one. A lot of, and I think that's kind of where that came from, was a lot of people have, as you move deductibles, for example, it's pretty popular, if you wanted to change your deductible, you change your deductible to $750. And charge them the same thing that you charge for the original plan, and then with the idea that people can buy that original plan back by paying a little more money. And then that gives people the choice of either having the same out-of-pocket with a little different plan, out-of-pocket cost with a little different plan, or keep the old plan and pay a little more money. And what generally happens is like what happened here is people migrate, they migrate to the one that costs the least amount of money out of their pocket. Eventually you have nobody on the plan that's left, and then you shelve it. But you could hopscotch and do it again. You could say we had 500, let's go to 750 or 600, keep the cost the same, let people buy back the 500 difference isn't that important to them. It's a soft way of trying to move people up the ladder.
Because even 750, that's the low deductible.
And our plan now with the co-pays is what?
You have no
But we
copays.
don't have co-pays.
Everything right now goes through your deductible. There's a 500 deductible, and then everything's 80/20. We pay 80, you pay 20 until they pay 20% of the next $5,000, which is, of course gets them $1,000. At that point, they've paid $1,500. Deductible plus 20%. Now, drugs are 80/20 with no deductible. So that, you could be paying a little bit more money for the drugs. But again, walking in and paying 20% of a $50 prescription is a lot better than walking in and paying $40 of a $50 prescription, or more. Now, we could go to copays. I mean, copays on drugs are really popular.
oh, sorry, everybody else.
Yeah. And you could soften it. It doesn't have to be these numbers. That's the other thing about plans like the United Healthcare plan is you got to square peg, square hole. You know, they show you a plan, you got to fit into it. There's no working it. We can work it. We can do copays, and you could have a $5 generic, $20 name brand, and 40 preferred. We can dial it in to what works.
I'd hate to be lumped the same with co-pays.
Well,
20% really, having said all that, 20% is pretty fair. That gives you, again, pretty good skin in the game. You go in, it's a $100 script, it's going to cost you $20. Might make you see, is there a, I bought a drug a while back. I was taking it for a couple weeks and walked into the pharmacy, there was $124. I thought, geez, that's pretty still. Guys, well, let me look into that for you. Comes back, it's got a $7 generic. Called the doctor. Said, I'll call the doc, see if you can take this. Called the doctor, said, sure. Paid $7, not 124. Only because I said, geez, that's a lot of money.
Pharmacists can save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're in our open enrollment period though, the month of December. So we kind of need to know what you're going to do, because in case some employees want to add a spouse, this is the time of year we do that. So, I mean, we need to know. And Dennis needs to know, or whoever you choose.
I'd be in favor of staying with Dennis, but increasing the deductible just a little bit.
Like,
You can do that or do a copay on prescriptions.
I'd rather not get into that myself. I'd rather just leave it the way it is.
I would be interested in that, I mean, just to, the copay, how it would affect how they purchase, what drugs they purchase. I think you'll see a dramatic difference in what they decide to buy, even at 80/20.
If they stop and think about it, though, they're still paying
They're not,
20%.
they're not by the numbers.
There's three tiers. You have generics.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You always have the generics. There's usually 3 tiers. Generic, and then there's what we call, there's either the brands or what we call formulary, which are generally speaking lower cost brands. They've been out for a while, they've been on the market and they kind of lose their luster, but they're still good brands, they're less expensive. Then you get the preferred brands, which is the latest, greatest, caught on TV last night, costs a lot of money, like the $124 deal. That's what, I went to the doctor, he gave me the first script. So here it is, and works for me. He said, well, we'll just renew it. That's when I went in, and he had a bag full, he gave it to me. Next time, he didn't have the bag full, it's going to cost me $124, turned out to be $7 generic. But that's why you have the difference in copay. So you might have a generic, a lot of people put generics at maybe even $4 or $5 in copay. Then the brand, you usually want to jump at about 20 bucks. So if you had a $5 generic, you'd probably want a $25 formulary, and then you would jump into maybe 50 for the preferred, because most people can find themselves in a generic or the formulary. And it gets them from that, what happened to me, where the doctor pulls into his bag of tricks. He probably didn't even know what it cost. It was just the latest, greatest, here, go buy this. They don't know what it costs. And so what drives that is then me, the consumer, has to say, this is a lot of money.
Yeah, I always ask my doctor.
Yeah.
For a generic.
Some of them don't pay
After she
attention to
got
that.
his number.
Some of them do.
So do you
Good
think
job.
raising the deductible would be the same dollar offset as a copay or not?
I think raising the deductible would probably save you more money than change. Because you've got a 20% difference in there anyway. So $100 generic's going to cost somebody. I mean, not generic. I mean, formulary is maybe 20 bucks. Now at that end, that would be a little bit low because you would normally probably want a $40 or $50 copay on that preferred brand, and then that formulary brand would be where you have maybe the $20 copay, and then you go on that, or 25, and you go like $5 maybe generic. You want to make the generics ridiculously inexpensive, so people kind of their thought process drives them down that way, and they'll ask the right questions. But we can do that. I mean, I can go to our people we work with on drugs, and they could work those numbers. But I don't know that. If you were going to do one or the other, not both, I think the deductible probably has more swing to it than the drug thing.
This page Clay just gave you is a second proposal from Freedom Claims for the partially self-funded. I got an email this morning.
Usually at the end of the year, you give us a readout of what's been paid as far as categories. And if my memory serves me correctly, it's prescriptions are the biggest thing.
Prescriptions are always a top three, if not top
Unless someone
one.
has a heart transplant or something
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah. Drugs are always top 1 or 2 or 3 collectively. Yeah. And yeah, we can do that anytime. We usually kind of wait till the end of the year, but I can run that today. Look, we had,
You didn't give it to them.
no, we didn't.
we only had 10 months.
But I mean, I can shut it off and run it to the end of November, this afternoon. Probably run it and have it shot over here while we're talking about it. We actually had our numbers fine-tuned a little bit.
But percentage-wise, it's prescriptions that are the largest.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's 2 arguments for that. You know, one is that they're a lot of money and who wants to pay all that money? But the other argument is if people are doing what they should be, then they're preventing people from having more major problems. You wouldn't want somebody that should have a drug not to take it and then end up in the hospital.
Right.
It's the classic diabetic, that's not compliant, that costs a lot more money than a compliant diabetic. So you wouldn't want somebody to not be compliant because they didn't think they could afford their drugs, and then end up turning into a big claim. Of course, those numbers are hard to quantify because you never know what you don't know. And here it is. This was our old quote. This one is got $3,000 less on fixed. If you had some goal in mind, another way to approach it was you said, you know, one way or the other, pick a number. I want to get $20,000 out of here. We could go back and work with the drugs. I can model it. I can do the deductible, one or the other, combination of both, until we find something that gets rid of $20,000 or $10,000, whatever your number is. But we can back into a number by, and again, that's based on last year's history and
Average.
yeah. That second page was the one I scratched through was what we had. It's about, does that make sense? What you're looking at, let me show you real quick. This was what we had when I was here before, and this was the
Yes,
updated
this
quote.
was last week, or 2
This,
weeks ago.
what they've done here is our fixed cost, when we were here last time, was 132. They was down to 129. We took some money out, got some, the carrier took some money out of this premium. They bid it at 97 something, and we announced at 94 something. And then this, what we call this little umbrella, was 534, and pulled that to about 14. That's that ceiling, you know, that the sky fell in. Boy, in fact, you know, we looked at this, the claims have run, well, 290, 230. You know, even this year it's at 382, and the umbrella's going to be over there, so. That's just an update. We keep, up to the point that we actually close the book on it and say we're renewing, we keep kind of shuffling the deck, hoping to get better numbers out of the carrier. And so what did this is actually November was a pretty good month. And the carriers, they want to see as current a claims as they can, so we keep pushing them the latest numbers. Well, actually November was, in their mind, was a pretty decent month, so they use that additional month of history to help pull the rate down. That's why this quote came back a little better. All we need to do is just call them on the phone and say, get after it, and it's done. Now, doing that wouldn't prevent us from maybe messing around with these plans not only if you want to. We can call the carrier and get them on the hook, and then
The 250 increase in deductible, I think, will get you to $20,000.
probably would. Well, again, a combination of things. You know, it's the deterrent filing claims,
Yeah. It's
and then the actual number itself.
It's 12,500 right off the top,
Yeah, yeah.
besides the deterrent.
So you want to plug in the numbers for $750 deductible, compare it to 500. I don't think you want to do 6. I mean, if you're going to do something, it's 750.
Yeah.
And on the 10 league goes off
2 times. Usually it's 2 times be 1,500. Usually
Oh, yeah.
750 single, 1,500 family. If you have multiple people, that's reaching deductible. You cap out at 1,500 for the family. Keep the co-insurance at 80/20 where it is. Leave the, well, we change drugs too, but at this point drugs are
I think
strict.
that's a big change.
Yeah. Can you can plug that in right away and get that? All
Sure.
right. That'd be good.
Do 750.
I do that.
So,
The one ones in yellow are the ones that aren't in the network, is that right?
Right.
Well, that's only if you're going to United Healthcare.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And supposedly, last week, that contract was signed, so all of Pratt is in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by that. As the network kind of, opportunity moves out here,
Several of them could use one.
I see the two, the first two.
So in reality,
Expect next
the insurance plan for the employees is still a pretty good deal.
oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
But, well, that one surprises.
Okay, let's do that. And then proceed. You want this?
Okay.
So,
Do you want Dennis to come back next week, or
Can you do
How do
it
you work?
after we get everybody else done? An hour, 30 minutes?
what?
Can you do it that quick or not?
let me call, I can probably give you a number. I don't have a report. I can call my office and have them run it. Yeah, let me go, let me,
I mean, that way we're done with it.
Yeah.
sure, let me,
Do you go use my desk?
okay, let me go get my, I need to go down and get my cell
I
phone.
mean, if it ain't gonna work, then we can do it next.
No,
week.
no, let's do it that way. I think that's a great idea. Let me call my office and they can run it and then give me a number and I'll be back. Okay, I gotta get my phone so I know what the number is. I gotta call, so. Okay, I'll be back.
Joe, you have anything?
No, the driving conditions are good, so I'll come down here. Last week, not so good.
They weren't bad here, but they were not good there.
Right now, it's pretty slushy up in Ellsworth. We got about 3-4 inches of snow.
Oh, really?
A strange snowstorm. It kind of
Come in, mister.
went straight west to east. It hit Saline County, but left McPherson County untouched. It went down there for
No,
a big
he's
pheasant
coming.
hunt.
She's coming
There's
back.
100 be snow on the ground and lots of
Very
water.
good. We've had more snow the first time than they did that.
Yeah, I
Another
gotta look
week,
for
and
that.
they had more than we had.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, I was late, I was on the phone to Medicare. Our NPI will be reactivated on Friday. They did get a packet. I think I certified mail that I'm signed for it, so they called me to confirm that they did get it. Last time it happened, they didn't do it. So yes, Friday will be reactivated and I'll be able to resubmit it. They deactivated ours on October like 30th or something like that. Because the birth date that they had didn't match Steve's information. So when I called him and told him Steve was no longer here, that bought me another packet. So I had to do another packet, they deactivated their deal. So I'll go back and resubmit the ones that have been submitted to Medicare already that they denied because of it and reactivate it on Friday. So I'll get them back. And just let you
So do I
guys.
have to sign another form?
No, you're done. Hopefully we're done with the forms. This, I've been working on, okay, I'm just gonna give you guys a snapshot. The 2009 account that we were talking about had the open balance of the $33,264.15. The signatures on file we were talking about, we originally had 36 of them. But however, some of them were already paying on their account or already in bad debt, or some of them are actually deceased now. What I noticed about the deceased accounts is that they're like $100 or just a little bit over. So the primary insurance had paid, but the insurance secondary, for some reason, did not pick up. So that's what the deceased is coming from. The signatures on file that we did not have, there's 22 accounts out there that didn't have them on there. That in the amount of $13,024.41. With those, I was looking, a lot of those are auto accidents. People are strapped to a spine board, they don't get the signature, and so that's pretty much how that works. A lot of them, not all of them, but that's just because they were not getting signature at the time of service, is why that is. ARSI, the medical billing division, I went ahead and sent them 22 accounts in the amount of $16,179.42. Those are pretty much self-pay accounts that weren't responding to us, and so I'm sending them to them. They'll send them a first statement, solicit insurance or anything from them. Second statement, they'll solicit any payment plan that they'll set up, and then after that, if they still don't respond, then they'll go over to the actual collection side of it.
And then after that, after a year, they'll go to Kansas. So they're in that realm. So possible collections that I'm seeing here is the 20,085.42. The ones that we would possibly have to write off are the ones that, of course, don't have the signatures and the deceased accounts. But everything else we should be able to go after.
Collections is total, though, that's not our share of it, right? It's possible collections.
Yeah,
It'd be
it'd be
these
the ones that are already actually being paid on, that are right now, that are in the system. Some of us are they're getting payments from either Kansas South, or the patient is still actually paying on that account. So theirs are still there, and then plus the one that were sent to ARSI.
So basically, you're calling these two on the left side of the page not collectible.
Yeah,
And
because-
these are helpful.
Yes, because we don't have the signatures for these, and then the deceased accounts, they don't have any, what do they call that?
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah. I just want to share with you guys for there. That's 2009, and I'll start in 2010s also.
And that's taking this back over from.
Hospital.
Yeah, the hospital.
Yes.
Very good.
For the second part of it? Okay.
You're fine.
The other thing I have, our holiday party is coming up on Monday, December 16th. We would like to provide a nice meal for our responders. Fire and EMS would like to split the cost for it. We want to provide 100 meals for our responders. And it'd be $575 coming out of each fire and EMS. We'd like to use line itemization of meetings and travel expenses. Can we use that on there? We have enough in ours, and so does fire, so that's why we were wanting to see if we could.
You don't have any problem.
Well, I didn't know if you had a lock.
Can you unlock the key?
Oh, Misty, here's something you might consider doing. When you provide services to people who've been arrested, and that does occur.
Yes.
If you could send a copy of the bill to my office, and that way we'll kind of try and make them pay it as part of their sentence. I used to do that with Jason Holt, of all people. And he was pretty good at it, and then post-Jason, for some reason, the bills never got to my office, but I know, for example, when Tom tasers people, a lot of times you guys are called.
Yeah, to remove the darts.
Following policy, following policy.
That's a fun time.
But like I said, if they're in custody or being arrested, if you can send a copy of the bill to me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, sure. We'll do that. That's all I had for you guys. Yes, the annexes reserved.
Good.
I'm gonna go call him and make the order.
Cool. All right, we'll be back in a little bit.
Okay, guys.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
We ain't got much, so. You, a brief rundown?
No, I'm turning his chair for him.
Well, run those to Misty. I've been trying to get those to her for a while.
Run up your shirt, run.
I'll be running.
Yes,
I think she's gone.
She walks fast.
It's just true. He's had a problem slipping out of the pickup, stuff like that, you know, eyes. And I didn't say that because he's been in front of me. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be blind. Should have given it to Taser guy.
Why do I get this reputation? Just
Because
I
you
come
tase
down,
people.
I had been certified for 9 months. I come down and I'm here 2 months and I have a guy who wants to take me on.
His anger.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
We had discussed this with the last 3 sheriffs that I've worked for. I've never been proven. Just a quick rundown. I mean, for us, we've been pretty slow.
We really didn't have anything. We were just once a month.
Once a month, come in and tell you how things are going.
That sounds
No, I mean,
good.
I talked to Tom last night about update on the vehicles and stuff.
Yeah, the Tahoe will be in December 20th is when it comes into KHP Fleet Services in Topeka. I actually got a invoice for it yesterday, so it'll be billed out of this year's budget, but we will not take possession of it until probably right after the first year. So
6 or 7.
yeah, somewhere around there. But and it's just so they can take the canine cage out, put the seat back in, detail it, go through the shop, make sure everything's good.
Speaking of that, did you or Jeff tell me you're not replacing your K9 dog?
He's never mentioned it.
Okay, well, the insurance was here and that's the liability, or are you going to borrow one or use one from another county?
We've normally been able to access other
Okay,
counties.
so we still have to have a liability.
Yeah, we've got 2 dogs available in Barton County.
Okay,
One
I was
of
just
them-
curious.
one-
That-
Their insurance on.
Yeah.
Well, with
Oh,
that
liability.
liability, in case the dog would bite somebody.
Okay.
So we
Right,
better
because
keep that.
It was
It's on
a
our-
narcotics only, it wasn't a patrol dog, the type that isn't
Their
by itself.
liability covered?
You might have Jeff
Well-
give a Jolene or Nita on that, though.
Okay.
I think we better just put that on here.
I would say, because we do,
You can't.
we do use a canine quite a bit down there,
Right.
more than what
Yeah.
the normal public sees, so.
I just saw it on
Maybe
there.
their
It's like-
liability
But
covered
since-
too.
Yeah.
I
Barton
think-
County's liability.
Well, it'd be Barton County or Pawnee County or Kiowa County,
Well,
between the
but
3
you
sheriffs.
do
Right.
use them.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
we do,
Yes,
yes.
Should they leave it with you then? Or
No, no.
Their owners with
Yeah,
it?
the handlers will.
Hey, they'll come down and assist us,
Yeah, maybe,
it's just typical.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
I'd-
can have it.
well, one of us is, if they're down there, one of us is.
Not
with
ours.
them,
I'd
so.
I would still talk to Jeff.
I'll ask
I would
Jolene.
tell Jolene how it works and see what she says.
So we don't have to pay for it, or don't need it, we should have to pay, don't need to pay for it.
Okay. I'll ask you.
But anyways, I didn't mean to get off subject.
Other than,
I
other than
thought
we have
about
the,
just myself insurance
uh,
or training and go from there to see about it, but it's just not something.
Yeah.
we had the big structure fire up on Northwest 190th, shortly after we met last time. And was 25 to 35 mile an hour headwind out of the south, and full engulf structure that doesn't. We used, at last count, was right around 19,000 gallons of water, the last 2.5 hours, just to knock it out.
Keep it down.
We had one wall left standing, but we kept it out of the trees, we kept it out of the field, kept it out of the rest of the farm equipment buildings over there, had all the tractors and stuff like that, so, you know, it was a sad day, it was a beautiful home. And she walked up to the door, smelled smoke, and saw fire, and left, so she got right out there, so she was okay, so. When Fire Chief Kloss and I both got there, it was, yeah, we might be able to knock it down, and by the time first truck got there, it already moved to the second floor, broken all the windows, and so it was just feeding oxygen to it. So nothing we could do at that time.
It was a 100-year-old house, and it had add-ons, so it was really hard to.
One of them good built houses, but, you know, it's one of them kind of nightmares for us, because it's got all the old stuff in it.
It travels through different ways, it was where you can't, and when wood was wood, I guess.
Yeah.
Wood was wood.
Other than that, we've had a couple little minor, we've had to order some pieces of parts we found out from that night, some connections and fittings to make kind of county structure fire compatible with some of our equipment, which is, we've been able to take care of, you know, under our required spending on it, so.
Okay, we used to do the new agreement that you signed, we used the
Yeah,
trade in
St. John's.
Nashville and
St. John's.
both, they used both companies.
On all 3 north stations, and then tanker from Larned, and tanker and command chief from Brigham. So, and that's something we'll be meeting with probably the chiefs of the surrounding counties who we do work with quite well. Probably show that first year.
What do you think the response time for that was, worked okay, or was way too slow? or-
No, because St. John pumper was automatically paid.
But it was structured, yeah, it was automatic.
Rob had called
Got
me.
part way, then.
Called
they said
me, and I said,
it
go ahead and
called
send it,
and we
so.
called the other one up, and it was just a few minutes.
It worked out good. We really did every
I
week.
didn't, I mean, that was basically the first one we had since we put that.
Yeah.
That agreement in place.
It worked well. It worked as well as what we did. And for us chiefs, that you had all of us out there. So minus Jerry and Stafford and, you know, the 4 of us that were there, it worked real well.
So
So
it was late at night, still about 30 minutes from Maxville after that. It was 30-some miles away, just a little 31, I think, from Maxville, is what we figured out. So, yeah, so with response and getting there, we were under 30 minutes, just about 30 minutes. That's about as good as we expected, actually.
the worst case scenario, far north end of the county, I mean, we were actually closer to Pumpers Up right now if we needed that. And that's something we can maybe visit with Chief Napolitano and something like that. You know, we have a worst case scenario like that too. So Chief Napolitano likes to work real well with us. Him and Steve are very good friends, and I've grown up knowing Mike over the years, so I think we'll make good shape there. We do have some flashlights that we need to replace. That was one of the things that we did find out our little survivor flashlights that we wear on our gear. Probably not the most user-friendly thing, especially going into a house. You got to take there, basically move it around. You got to grab it.
It shines kind of down here at the ground, not where you're trying to look to see where you need to go with what you're seeing, so we're trying to.
We're looking at
something out.
We're looking at some helmet lights. And basically, just right up here, they're LED helmet lights. We've got a pack in the back with a flashing light on them. They're $86 a piece. And we've got money within our line item that we said. We've got money in our budget to do it, and we've talked with, Davin's talked with the guy from NES, our rep, and he's pretty confident that he could get us an invoice out very, very quick. That way we get it out of the budget this year. May not get in possession until January, but we get an invoice out just good.
So how many do you need?
We're going to do it in phases.
Phases. We're going to start with 25 now, and we're going to, I think, issue 20 out, keep 5 back in case somebody breaks one or something like that. We have a little bit of a stockpile. So at $86 a piece.
Initially now, the ones who will get them are what they call entry people. That actually, we have some people in our departments that don't have enough experience to go into a house or in kind of a structural deal. So we're going to issue it to them first, so they have the lights where they can see directly in front of them and stuff like that. I mean, that's where you find out you need the most.
So eventually we'll switch everybody after,
But we're just going to do
our
our
entry
entry
people
first.
Entry people and most of our chief officers, because, you know, theoretically, we're not technically supposed to go into a house, but you know how that works. You're first on the scene, first on the truck, you gotta do what you gotta do, so.
How much is that?
They're $86 a piece, so, 25 of us, 22 something, I think, $2,200.
So it's over the 5, so have a motion.
I make a motion to allow the, I think,
25.
25 of the helmet lights.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we authorize the fire department to purchase helmet lights. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
That's all we got, guys.
Oh, that's why we don't have to get them for Stafford.
Yeah, Jerry's got one.
There's a
Oh,
the city guys
city
heard that, so we don't.
We're still waiting on an invoice for the tank from Shaven Industries. Jerry was gonna get on the ball, and he thought he would have it here by the end of the week, so. I don't think the tank will be here yet, but it's one of the things that we'll get the invoice and get it done, so I'm trying to get that all done.
Now, are these rechargeable batteries or are they?
These are double A's.
You can get rechargeables, but it jacks the price up.
Yeah, jacks up about $120, $140.
They're just
a piece.
double A's, 4 double A's.
Right.
We're talking about purchasing bulk batteries after the first year too, because Duracell kind of does that.
A free giveaway to at once a year. I think they have 1 million batteries.
Yeah, they're getting 1 million batteries across the US.
But it goes to FEMA.
FEMA.
And then they kind of dole them out.
So we're gonna go ahead and get some batteries, stockpile order. Gina was looking for some stuff the other night when we were sitting in Chiefs meeting. So
We're trying to do it order direct and even bulk instead of when we go buy 30 packs and 30 pack. Because it's not just these, it's our air pad monitors and they take double A's and we have to do this at least yearly, so we'll go through.
we do have some air pack issues.
We're 50.
We've got 4 or 5 that we found just for one most recently on St. John's City Fire, and it's part of the county agreement equipment that we'll take care of. The City of St. John's going to take care of that particular piece. We're talking with Gavin, he's been in contact with the guys going to come out and do it. And we're looking at setting up basically a field class where I think all 5 of us, 6 of us, or whoever we decide is going to sit in this class, and we can do our own repairs on stuff and get parts that we need. The minor stuff where we don't have to ship the pack off or have tech come out and do it. The major stuff we'll still have to ship on. So we're gonna have a few little repairs out the first year, but we're gonna have packs in stock that
We're
we're okay.
They're also looking into going to having our own service tech if we can.
And that's
sit
what
down
that'll be.
to a Scott's. When it's a
The actual, Davin told me,
$30 an air pack to fix, it might be.
he told me the actual cost for a field, or for a service tech for a Scott's Air Pack with tools, class, and everything is $25,000. But for a field class, like what we're wanting to do for little minor repairs, they'll come out and get the class for nothing. So, and we can order parts, so. It'll be the easiest way.
We will be able to.
We'll be able to work
part. That's our holdup. We can fix them ourselves, but they will not.
They won't let us do it
Let us
unless you have
do
to
it
train.
ourselves.
Have to train.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
And because it voids, voids the pack and all that, and kind of leaves us hanging in the wind or something. So,
Save ourselves some money in the long run. We have to repeat.
but EMS Christmas party, fire and EMS is next week, Christmas party, and we have a joint countywide firefighter chief meeting and FRA meeting planned for early next January. So I think around the 14th, so. Just to kill all of our meetings on one shot, so. We're required to have the FRA meeting at least once a year, but we kind of decided as chiefs we want to do a countywide firefighter meeting at least once or twice a year and talk about training issues, stuff like that, so see if we can get some training set up this next year.
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys later. We'll bring that Tahoe when we get it.
All right.
That's a ride.
Yeah, Rob and I will probably have to make a flying trip.
1720.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Shane will go get it for you.
1720 on the lines.
Maybe lucky KHP maybe give us a ride.
Yeah.
It's not very far about that time.
Times 20.
Okay.
I saw it on the trip.
It's in the hospital.
You've already told me to Dodge.
We'll recess.
Yesterday when we were dealing with the semi.
Well, that doesn't factor in any maybe attitude changes, that's just a hard math. Looking at people who used it, what would have happened, as if you replayed the game. But,
Yeah, I suppose they didn't all of your members didn't use the
No.
whole thing anyway.
no.
If they all used it, it'd be about 12,500.
Yeah, in fact, actually, I have that. Yeah, you don't have everybody, there's a lot of people that don't get to deductible. I actually have that. Right here, this shows how many people actually had less than two, had 46, now you got, we count the belly buttons here, spouses, kids and all that, so there's 46 people there, never even got, here's right there, 54, never even got to 500. When you put it to 750, there's 5 more, 59. So here's your people, you got 4 that went here, 9 that went 10 to there, and only 2 that went 25 to 49, so yeah, you have a lot of people that doesn't impact what you hope you'll do, but is maybe encourage some other people not to. Kind of validates what we've always talked about. 80% of your claims come from 20% of your people, because you get so many people up in here that just don't use that much. Yeah, there's a bunch of them
I saw on your list you had people with $2 or $3 is all this.
here.
How you can do that?
Yeah, it could be a drug, could be a
Yeah.
$5 drug. They paid 20% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's probably a move in the right direction. On the other hand, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So what was the difference in price again?
8,800 to move your deductible to 750 is what your savings will be. Based on last year's claims, 8,800.
I thought it would be more than
And it still could be. That's just.
Yeah, it could be.
that.
Like
Yeah.
I say, there's that.
If it's a deterrent, yeah.
Yeah, there's that attitude adjustment there that comes into play a little bit. Might be closer to 10,000, if you move the bar a little bit.
I think we need to do something like that.
But the norm is a greater deductible.
Oh, absolutely. The norm is higher deductibles, 1,000, and there's a lot of $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 deductibles are not uncommon. part of that's because, you know, there's these, the HSAs have driven people, there's been and the minimum deductible for that, I think, is $12.50 or maybe $13.50 this year for a health savings account.
Well, I don't think we're out of line by going to $750 deductible.
No, it's still up there, like.
Most people, they have you go out and buy their own product, you know, if you're an individual and you say, well, most people would buy $5,000
I'll
deductibles.
say you couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
You
would end up buying something really catastrophic just to bail you out, fix the world pellet on you, and you'd end up buying $5,000 deductible. Our most popular plan on our risk pools that we do for Kansas and other states, our most popular plan is a $10,000 deductible. We offer, actually, in one of the states, we offer a $15,000 deductible.
I'm in favor of that. I think we'll just go ahead and go with the $750 deductible and stay where we're at.
Yeah. We need a motion to stay with BMI
It's over $500.
with a $750 deductible.
That was the motion?
That was a motion.
Second that.
Okay, this motion's been made and seconded that we stay with BMI on insurance for our county employees.
That
But
doesn't kick us out of the grandfather status, does it?
You already are.
We're already kicked out. Oh, no matter.
with an increase of up to $750 deductible. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And then we're going to eliminate the $300 deductible. Just take it off the books.
Why are we kicked out of the grandfather? Because of the
Change.
50 employees?
No, actually, the grandfather doesn't mean anything anymore. When last year when you went to the $500 deductible, you could only make incremental changes, and they were really tiny. So when you move your plan, I think you can't change your plan more than 5%. And we pretty much did that last year. And really, it doesn't, at this point in the game, it doesn't, because everything in 2014, you lose your pre-ads, your waiting periods are shortened, all those things come into play anyway. So grandfather was a little more important a couple of years ago. It doesn't do much for you now. It doesn't do anything for you now. Well, you,
That's what I'm doing.
okay, I don't need it. If you want to copy it, then I want you to keep it. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Okay,
Well-
Dennis, thanks.
Yep.
You'll get to do
Well,
final.
yeah, we'll get you, and we'll have to go and get you no amendment and take this out. And keep this up and get her done for,
Okay.
get her done for 1/1. All right,
Thank you.
appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay. What else? We did the abatements, did the minutes.
I did visit with Senator Holmes, and he thinks the mortgage fee will be gone.
Really?
Yes. Without it. He said you better push pretty hard if, because the bankers and realtors pretty well already got, have been pushing for that for quite a while.
The Treasurers Association is gonna not support it, so. But I did read that, we're trying to help keep it, so.
Yeah, I think you might be far enough behind in the game, but I don't know. He didn't think there
Well,
was
once
much
you get
hope
the
to keep it.
bankers in, it's hard
Yeah.
to push it
And
out.
the realtors, yeah.
Mhm.
What he says makes a little bit of sense too. He said the main thing the bankers are saying is it's not a fair tax because people that are borrowing money pay the mortgage fee, and people that can go out and write a check for a house don't pay it.
It levels the playing field for them, I can see that.
That's kind of hard to argue with him, but, I told him, well, we could replace it with something else like other states do. So, because other states have ways of raising that same amount of money, but it's different than just a mortgage fee, and I don't know how it works, but
So will that
He said
heritage
they'd look
tax
into
go away too then?
Well, it would have to.
Yeah,
That's where the
'cause
money's coming
That's
from.
part of the heritage is,
yes.
I'm surprised. Yeah.
So
I've never
that's
thought of that till
$1 million
now.
something every year.
Well, this Heritage Trust Fund, that's pretty nice. I mean, that does a lot for communities.
They get one out every $20 or something into that, I think.
I mean, like, the Gray Studio, we're applying for a grant with Heritage Trust for $90,000. You know, it helps communities. I think Stafford's, there's a place in
Well, the
Stafford applying
museum,
for it
the
too.
museum has gotten 2 or 3 grants.
Mhm.
One for, you know, to do the pillars at the bank, the old bank, and then they did the roof, or not the roof, but the windows and stuff this summer. The library has gotten one.
That's a good program. But yeah, I bet it'll do away with that.
Kingman County
They have
Courthouse got one. Hamilton County Courthouse has gotten one every year for the last, I don't know how many years, at $90,000 a pop. And
His statement was they were trying to see what they could do to get that, to replace that money to the counties, but it wasn't gonna be through the mortgage fee.
Yeah.
But
So what's the commissioners, what's your organization?
KAC,
Are they
they're
gonna,
opposing.
are they
Oh,
gonna
they're-
are they gonna testify?
Yeah.
When is testifying on the bill?
Well, they don't even go into session until January the 10th, so,
Oh yeah, we're not even there yet.
no.
I mean, you guys just need to go up to Topeka and be there when they testify. It really makes a difference if people show up. It really does help the communities, I believe. If that's going away.
Well, the thing is, I think it all boils down to is Johnson County and Wyandotte County.
Yeah.
You know, their biggest competitor is across the river. And it was obvious years ago when we went to that economic meeting in Topeka. They look, you look at the map and the representatives all over the world, but the greatest concentration of representatives was in Johnson County, because at that time they said that Missouri was their biggest competitor. And
But Missouri has a tax some sort, and I don't, it's not the same, but they collect money somehow.
well, they're going to get money one way or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas doesn't have vehicle tax, but
Yeah, they replace it with
You
Oh,
something
neither does
else.
Oklahoma. I
You
hear
pay-
about it all the time.
They replace it with something
you
else.
pay it somewhere
And I
else.
tell them, well, go right on down there.
There you go.
All right, I don't have anything else.
I don't
I
have
think we
anything.
pretty well cleared killed I don't know how many trees today.
That was- I was
You
kind
think, Kurt?
of hoping our premiums or our savings on health insurance would pay for the increase in
Yeah.
that, but it didn't quite make it.
So if that passes, it'll probably take effect July 1st, won't it?
I presume.
Yep.
So I wonder, see, that's a budget shortfall we'll have.
Remains to be seen. Anything else, Kurt?
No.
Okay, we're adjourned.